Everyone. Okay. It's 5:30. The Economic Development, Tourism and Culture Initiatives Advisory Committee meeting is now called to order. Roll call has been taken. The meeting is held in a hybrid format. All cameras for committee members shall remain on to ensure quorum. Members of the committee shall indicate they wish to speak by raising their hand. Members who are present in person will be given opportunity to speak first, followed by virtual participants. Please leave your hand raised until the chair has determined the result of the vote. All rules of delegations under the city's procedural bylaw apply. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest for any of the items listed on the agenda today? I see no hand. We'll move on to item number 3.1. We have one presentation on our agenda today. I would ask Adrian Briggs to present your presentation. As a member, you have 10 minutes, inclusive of questions.
Okay, hello everyone. Nice to see you again. I also, before I jumped into the presentation, I wanted to follow up on a question that was asked from last meeting relating to the two public art initiatives that this group reviewed last meeting. And I can confirm that the company that fabricates the traffic light wraps is local. So
Wonderful.
there you go. Okay, and now I will dive into this presentation. Okay, so I'm here to give you a very high level overview of the public art policy update. To give you some context, I just threw in some fun facts, but to give you an idea, the policy has not been updated since 2010, so very much overdue. General updates, we've updated the terms of reference. I've done a very deep dive into other our comparison municipalities and other municipalities on their policy updates. So bringing them in line with best practice from an industry standard, modernizing the goals and practices of the actual public art policy in the direction that we want to go as a city, using this policy as a framework, and enhancing and hoping to benefit to grow as the city grows, the public art collection and culture grows with it. So I'm going to talk about four of the big kind of updates in this policy, which is temporary public art, murals, hoarding, and the community improvement plan. Just to give you an idea, I just wanted, there's some fun facts in there, but the Ontario culture sector provides $26.4 billion to the provincial GDP in 2022. So it's a massive industry, and it brings in a lot of jobs. So we definitely want to support local artists, support regional artists, grow and invest in arts and culture, which also indirectly promotes tourism and reasons to live and thrive in the city. So, yeah, excellent, please. All right, so just to kind of show you a baseline of where we sit in our to our comparative municipalities. So the way the public art portfolio is structured currently, I receive $35,000, and that goes into the public art reserve fund. That's given every single year, and it sits there until it's ready to be used for a project, and that carries over and accumulates for bigger projects. We also have, we also have flexible spending when other departments come to us with public art projects that might be included in their budget. So this allows us to expand beyond this annual yearly cap. And then we also sometimes will get grants, which is one of the other projects we have going on this year, or sometimes tourism will work with tourism to integrate their budget into different arts projects. To show you where we compare to our other municipalities, just from a baseline, we are under spending comparatively. I've broken them into two categories. We have the reserve fund, which is the 35 that I'm referring to. And then you also have some other municipalities have an additional fund, which goes into programming for arts and culture. So they're two different streams.
Yeah, make an observation. Or should I wait? I'll wait till
the end. So yeah. So this is, and these are just very high level. These are also structured, different municipalities structure their arts and culture spending differently. But this is from what I've been able to talk to my colleagues online and through phone calls. Perfect. So what are we seeing in this update? So temporary public art. This is a big part of the modernization of the public art collection. Traditionally, public art is, as many people think, just bronze sculptures, and it is much more than that now. It involves many more pop-up installation. You're looking at murals, you're looking at maybe live street art happening in like arts and a festival kind of structure. And they could be light installations. And so there's quite a range. And so we're creating this category in this policy because it will allow for more flexibility for temporary installations, as the way the policy was written prior, that it had to be in perpetuity and forever, which is not sustainable to modern practices of public art. It's not to say we won't be still creating permanent public art. Of course we will. It just allows for more flexibility between these two categories. Yep. Next is murals. So up until quite recently, murals have been kept under the sign bylaw, which is not standard in most municipalities. Most municipalities, it falls under public art and culture in some capacity. And so we are removing it, and I've been working with bylaw. We're moving it from the sign bylaw. It's going to come under public art policy as a whole, and it's going to be broken into two categories. Obviously, the city will have its murals, and then this will also apply to private murals on buildings. And we will be basically streamlining the process to allow for private businesses, private homeowners, if they want to paint their garage door, if they want to paint side of the building, they will be able to do that without having to check with the city. There, of course, will be parameters on like what can be put on the wall, and essentially be a good person is what the policy is written as, in what the subject matter that you promote. So it's really just trying to encourage more private investment in kind of murals within the city is what this is trying to do. The community improvement plan. So for those of you who don't know, there are two community improvement plans that already exist in the city. There is the Greywater Community Improvement Plan and, sorry, let me find my notes, and the downtown one. And basically what we are doing is I'm working with the other staff who's in charge of the CIPs for the city, and we're expanding the program to include murals for businesses. And it's going to help offset some of the kind of property increase that happens when they invest in the building. The city has already a pre-existing framework that offsets the property tax, and this will be in addition to that. So this will allow businesses to, by investing in murals on the property on the streetscape, it has to be outside at the pedestrian level, that they will be able to benefit from that program. The city will be, I'll obviously be around to help with any questions, but this will really be working through the CIP structure framework in that regard. Hoarding. So another thing, this is very much a preemptive move, sorry. The city is growing vastly, as we all know, and hoarding is going to become more and more common within, especially as we decide to build up instead of out. And hoarding this program is very popular in other municipalities. Hamilton does it, Toronto, Niagara Falls, pretty much pick a municipality, it already exists. So the city will be working with tourism to create a hoarding database that will go through a traditional artist call, and then developers will be able to pick from this database to put art on their hoarding structures when they apply for their hoarding permit. There will be parameters around, it won't be triggered for every project if it's small, but these are really focused at long-term projects that become quite an eyesore on the pedestrian level. Also, it can help with goodwill and buy-in if the project is a little controversial. And it's also great because we're supporting local artists and beautifying the streetscape, which prevents tagging and posters and other unwanted kind of infringement on the hoarding, for lack of a better way of putting it. Yeah, and that's a very high level, very fast overview, speed dating style. Questions?
Thank you, Adrian. Any questions about the presentation?
Well, do we move it to put it on the floor and then questions, or what do we? I'll defer to the clerk.
So, yeah, to the chair, we can ask questions now about the presentation if you guys have any.
Yeah.
And then we can move on to the item itself, putting the item on the floor and talking about the recommendation up to the committee. So if there's any questions about the presentation, we can do it now.
No question.
Yes. Councilor Sample.
Okay, so first, it's not a question, just to say I love the whole thing and all of the ideas, but I do have a question, of course, to say that. So the question I do have is, with everything you presented, under the temporary public art piece, I think is where I'm kind of thinking, is that's gonna make it, can you expand on how much easier it's going to make it for the BIA to be able to paint the doors of the downtown businesses, is what they were looking at doing?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of falls into three different multi pieces of this update. In part, so it's kind of, they're all interconnected. By creating a temporary public art piece within the public art collection, we can add more murals, more pop-up stuff. And we can also means because I run the collection, can access the funds for it to create more of these things. And then that indirectly, by updating what qualifies as murals and opening up what people can put on their walls, that's where businesses will have more flexibility to just put a painting on a wall. I don't need to see it. I don't need to be involved in the process. You don't need a sign permit. Just pay an artist properly and you can put it on the wall. Or if you want to work with a community group, that's fine. The only thing, there will be parameters that bylaw has been roped into, but like I said, just be a good person when you're putting up your subject matter is essentially what the parameters are. And then bylaw does have ability to enforce that if it is like explicitly offensive or, you know, racial discrimination, anything like that. That's where bylaw can still step in. So we're still working with them, but we're moving it in terms of that process, and application process is going away.
And when do you see this being finalized?
In theory, as soon as the policy is full approved by council, it will be greenlit for community to put murals on their walls. Yeah.
Perfect, and I really appreciate the CIP portion of this too. I think that's gonna be really great, because
Yeah.
I will see so many more murals and things in the
I
community.
think it'll be really good.
Through the chair, we've also, with Council Juan and Adrian, drafted the bylaws, you know, to amend the sign bylaw and those things. So once this is approved, those documents will also be approved at the council level.
Yeah.
That's perfect. I appreciate you guys making it so streamlined and so much easier for community art.
Thank you. I see two hands. Oh.
Okay, I'll go. So I'll echo Councillor Samuel's comments about knowing what some of the challenges have been within the BIA over the last decade or so. I think that this helps do that. An observation that I think also would support Councillor Samuel as chair. And this is an observation, so not really, but interesting that you, I'll use the word seeded with comparator municipalities in terms of how they're funding this type of initiative. As past chair of the councillor or the remuneration committee of council that used similar comparative municipalities in terms of gauging how council is compensated. It seems that the city does not adequately fund public art to the same level that they adequately fund their own salaries. So that would suggest that one of those two things is out of whack given the size and increasing complexity of our municipality, which I would suggest as chair of that committee that perhaps there needs to be more funds dedicated towards public art to bring public art compensation and the councillor compensation to a more equitable level of those of our surrounding municipalities. So I throw that out there and let it sit.
Thank you, David. I didn't. Who is Danette? Please.
I'm not sure if this is a question through you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure if this is a question regarding the presentation or just the work that went into putting the report together. But my question is just in relation to a reserve fund for the maintenance and repair, the ongoing maintenance and repair of any, I guess, public art pieces that are established on I guess, city property more than anything. I'm not sure how much we can get into that when it's on private property, but I'm very familiar with murals in another province that have sort of come of age and have needed a lot of work after several years and being exposed to elements and so on. So was there any research done around that, or is there a reserve for the upkeep of these murals, or an understanding of what the long-term plan is once they've aged? Are we getting rid of them? Are we fixing them up? What's the thought there?
So I do have a budget that relates to city-owned public art collection that goes into conservation. It's only for city-owned assets. I can't use public funds on private property. That would go against kind of, well, how municipalities run. But also to your point about the murals, murals are never meant to live in perpetuity. That's their intrinsic nature of how they were designed. They're meant to be fluid in a lot of ways, and that's why they're classified under temporary public art. It's not to say they won't live past 10 years, which is the year of 10, sorry, where temporary public art is being classified as, but it's just, that's the lifespan. And after that, it gives way and makes way for new murals to replace that. I think that's something, the way our public art is moving, it is a much more fluid process now, and it's not as rigid as it used to be with like these pieces that are meant to live for time and memoriam. So there isn't a budget for private property to maintain their murals or any sort of public art that or art that they invest in. That would have to come from the private ownership's budget. But the city doesn't. That's why we have the two classifications on what we need to maintain forever and what we maintain for a minimum of 10 years.
Okay, maybe, I don't know if there's any possibility of making,
I can also add to that, any private murals on private property do need to be maintained by the owner for 2 years. That's what we've put into the policy, and just an act of goodwill for that.
2 years only?
Yeah, that's the requirement. Yep. For private.
How come only 2 years?
That was the industry standard when I looked at other municipalities for what they were looking for, the range was for what it was required to maintain as.
Okay. When I read through the report rather quickly over the weekend, I don't remember any remarks there about that the longevity or the plan after it sort of lived its life, the shelf life of these things. I don't know if we can add something like that to that effect, or if it's just a basic understanding in the arts and culture world that after 10 years, murals die and they're put to bed and something new comes up in its place.
That's definitely the cultural understanding within the arts and culture space.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And through the chair, that's why Adrian made it flexible to only maintain for 2 years in the private sector, recognizing that there is budget constraints and that you won't be able to fund it for 10 years. So after 2 years, if you can't do maintenance on it or replace with another mural, you could in theory just paint it over top of it, and it would be a budget friendly way to remove it.
Yeah. They don't want to restrict.
And I cannot hear it.
Jeanette, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear. That's good
Yeah.
volume here now. Yep, sorry.
That's okay. No, you just wanted to make sure.
Going in and out a bit for me, sorry.
Yeah, and we don't want to put any kind of additional financial ownership on the private community to feel the pressure to maintain beyond that 2 year mark. So we're adding that flexibility. It's not to say they can't. It's just that the baseline there is what it is.
Thank you, Victor.
I'll keep it brief because I know we're going to run out of time. But I'm really interested in this hoarding strategy because it's actually a new terminology to me. I learned a new word today. And my question regarding that is, as we know, the SCC project is moving ahead. There's going to be a lot of development in the lower bowl of the downtown area. Of course, there's also the Colborne Point development that's forthcoming, the dig downtown. So I suspect there's going to be a lot of hoarding in Brantford, hoarding structures in Brantford quite soon. So my question is there a strategy about how to best utilize this forthcoming canvases that will be probably throughout downtown?
So right now, obviously, I still have, this all has to get approved before I start with any sort of building a database for it. But the plan is to put in an artist call, and we will be looking at getting 5 designs that can be used 5 times, essentially, and they can be scaled accordingly based on the amount of hoarding and that they need. This only gets triggered if the hoarding will be up longer than 3 months. As like small storefront projects that are a couple weeks don't need it. It will also only be triggered if the hoarding is like basically in very close proximity to the sidewalk where pedestrians will be accessing and or engaging with. So we're not looking at like a construction site that's heavily set back and very removed from the public face. So there are some parameters about what actually triggers the hoarding process. We are going to start with 5 and we're going to see how it goes. Is kind of where we're keeping it open-ended to make sure that we have flexibility for adjustment if we need to. If we need to bring more options into the portfolio, or if it can be sustained with 5 for a number of years based on the demand. But the idea is that it gets used a few times and then it's retired to allow for a new artist to get a commission and for their work to be seen. We will also be adding like a little QR code and an artist bio requirement on the hoarding so that if people do want to learn about the artist, they will have that access as well.
Add to what Adrian's saying, in 2024, there was 1 permit for hoarding applied for to the city of Brantford. And going back the last 5 years, it's averaged between 1 and 2. So this is not something that we foresee being hugely impactful right away, but we want to be prepared for it in the event that a lot of hoarding permits do come. The construction schedule for Icon Drive this summer will not require hoarding. They don't even anticipate the SEC will need some at this point either, but we want to be ready. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for all the questions and answers and for your presentation. We'll now consider item 4.1. Can I please have a mover and seconder to place the item on the floor? Danette, moved by Danette.
Andy's got his hand
Oh,
up.
sorry. Seconded. Hi, Andy. Thank you. Now the item is on the floor. Victor.
I saved my congratulations for the discussion section. I really just want to congratulate you, Adrian, again. This is a 2 in a row for incredible work, both last meetings proposal and this one. It's inventive. I maybe use inventive in with a little bit of clarity because we're kind of meeting the standard across municipalities in Canada. So thank you for bringing us up to date, but also for bringing in interesting projects to this region that we desperately need more imagination. I think sometimes around creative ways to apply art. I'm thrilled to be able to support this and see more art in atypical places. So thanks for this hard work, and yeah, I'm thrilled to see where this is going to lead us.
I have a question about the $35,000. Was the amount lower before? Is this a new?
It's been like that for.
It was 30,000 and 30 in the 10 years I've been here. It's gone up from 30,000 to 35.
Yeah, and that comes from the casino reserve fund,
which goes to the public art reserve, which funds new acquisitions, and then we have a separate 35 to our operating, which covers annual maintenance. For context, last year we spent almost double that on maintenance because of unforeseen vandalism and repairs that needed to be met in order to ensure safety of the public.
Victor. Oh,
sorry, just to echo off of that, just a reminder to this committee that there was a staff presentation at the community, the Hub for Community, the Summit for Community Solutions last year that was directly talking about the impact of mural work on preventing or discouraging vandalism. And again, I just want to reiterate that there is sort of an unwritten rule not to damage existing artworks. So it's a really great deterrent. When there's a blank canvas, there's more likely the want to spray or like to tag. When there's a piece of art, it's usually left, right? So I don't know, I'd rather look at a beautiful piece of art than tagging, right? So just a reminder that this is really a great way to discourage that kind of behavior, right?
Thank you, Victor. David.
So building on my observation and Kara's point, advocacy towards increasing that, is that a public, is that a budgetary piece, like a delegation to council during budget season to up the public art budget?
through the chair, that'd probably be helpful at the next 4-year budget cycle, that staff ask for more funds, and then this committee maybe puts forward a delegation to support it, along with the public arts subcommittee as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Great point, especially if we doubled, if we spent double the amount last year.
If you look at it this way, 35,000 a year is about 3 years to get a mural, or 10 years to get a new contemporary piece, or 15 years or more to get a bronze. So if we want new public art acquisitions annually, we need to contribute more annually to the reserve.
To the chair, and using my example of the comparative municipalities which don't have a casino legacy fund, those funds are being driven from the general property tax revenues.
I would, yeah, there might be some differences. I didn't get into the nitty gritty of where exactly it came from. But yeah, they're from different funds. Yeah, correct.
Danette?
Through you, Madam Chair, just building on what Victor was just saying about deterring tagging and so on, is there something in place to help protect these murals from getting damaged or vandalized?
Yep.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay. Yeah, so well, I can't speak for private ownership, but I can speak for the city murals, and actually the traffic light boxes and the little houses we're going to be covering. All of them have anti-graffiti coating on them. I will say, just from a baseline, a lot of muralists are not a fan of anti-graffiti coating, and that's just because it can change the color and the shine of the actual paint underneath. So we do have, I make sure that it is put in the artist call up front, that is a requirement. There also has been some great advancements recently in the cost, and it's come down a lot for artists to put anti-graffiti coating on. It used to be incredibly expensive. It would eat a good chunk of their budget, or their budget. But like, for example, the Phil Hartman mural has not been touched since it's been up. And the community piece mural had anti-graffiti coating on. Someone drew a butterfly on it, and that just came right off. So it hasn't been touched since. And the pages of the grand mural, someone wrote a fun little recipe on one of the white blank pages of the book. And so that goes back to Victor's point. But that again was, we got the artist to come back, and that was a quick fix. So, and it's easy. Murals are relatively easy to maintain, especially when they have that coating on, and when the artist is local, it's relatively inexpensive to get them to come back and do a little quick fix.
Yes.
Through the chair, you said in recent years there's been 1 request, 2 requests. I imagine there's been much more than that, where you could have had that done, but that there just wasn't a request put in.
You're referring to the hoarding stuff?
Yes, for the hoarding.
Well, through the chair, it's hoarding permit, so
Right.
they would have to apply for it, but it could have been that there was more hoarding in the city than that, but it didn't meet the 3-month threshold. But that's what our colleagues in planning gave us as far as
So
stats
there's
they
something
collected.
Within
Yeah.
the parameters of this program that we're putting forward.
I see.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say if there's some way to further encourage or let folks know, but
Well, I think the fact that the city is eating the artist fee is a big component of that, to encourage it. And I did do my research on other municipalities that have programs, and there's many different ways to structure this program. And this is actually by a city in New Zealand, interestingly enough, they do this structure, and that's where I got the idea
and
from, where they eat the cost
did
of
they
the
find
artist fee.
that increased like made a difference?
Yeah,
Before and after?
yeah. They also, they were also going through a bit of a pilot project where they were in the process of tying it to the hoarding permit to make sure it actually happened. And we are making sure that is already in place. They missed that, and that was a learning opportunity, because
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good that that's.
yeah, it's gonna be tied directly to that, and Juan's been helping with that,
That's
making sure
awesome.
everything is all linked.
Excellent and awesome research looking at New Zealand. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, the arts community is very forthcoming with ideas and knowledge, so it's great.
Thank you.
Anyone? Okay, wonderful. So, yeah, item on the floor, no more discussion. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Congratulations, Adrian. 5.1, can I please have a mover and seconder to place the minutes on the floor? David and, sorry.
Jake.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carried. There are no resolutions, there are no notices of motion. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.